So what? All right, hello everybody.
You need the microphone.
I got a loud voice. You guys can hear me, right?
Always.
Anyways, so excited to be with you as always. We got an exciting show today.
We do.
Given the topics we're going to be covering. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
I've been keeping up on, because I speak French, as you guys may know, and I've been reading the French publications in Paris. Funny, I just spoke to my family yesterday in Paris.
Yeah.
Of course, we didn't get involved in politics. We tend to get heated with the family, but they're my family also.
Yep.
And
you got to love and accept them no matter what their opinions are.
That is true. But so I've been reading the stuff, and sometimes I translate them and talk about, and this, you can overlook what's going on in Niger, because in Niger is fundamentally is going to change the global balance of power, whether the West likes it or not. So this is what we're going to be digging about. Actually, as a matter of fact, what are the topics we're going to be talking about?
All right, so we have 3 big topics today. The first one is the one you just brought up, and that is there were tens of thousands of protesters outside of a French military base in Niger to basically say, we're absolutely done. France, you are completely out. And there is nothing you can do about it. And we don't care if you don't like it. So that's the first one. And I think you're absolutely right. This is really the beginning of that complete shift. So the next one is that President Xi of China is supposed to skip the G20 summit in Delhi.
That's a big blow.
Deal.
And a big blow for India.
Huge blow. Not only a huge blow for India, but this is the first summit that Xi has not attended since 2013 when he rose to power.
Here's a quick thing.
Yeah.
That's a message.
That's
we will detail what it is.
Huge message. We're going to dive into the message.
You're right.
And then the third is that Europe's economy is in shambles. And Europe isn't talking about it as much as it should. Quite frankly, the US isn't either. But there are a lot of shifts that are happening in Europe right now. Yeah. So we wanted to discuss that.
Perfect. Well, that's very, very interesting. But before we delve deeper into this, if this is your first time on this channel, please make sure to subscribe. We truly appreciate it. Also, want to talk about the course, because we're going to be launching the course.
It's already launched. It's already launched.
I'm falling behind. So let me, guys, share the link with you. Can you just explain a little bit?
I can.
I'm going to put the link here for our
guys,
viewers.
Ultimately, the U.S. government. So this is a live course being taught by David. And basically, around the world, people, whether you're an American citizen or you are not, the United States government has not only impacted what's happened here in the States, but has really shaped the global stage. And right now it's losing its hegemony. And so a lot of people are asking what is going to happen as the world shifts. And to understand that, you have to understand what's actually happening with the United States government. It is not what you think. It's not what we were taught even growing up. So David is going to teach that course. He is teaching it live, and it's at geopoliticsandconflict.com/US. And there's a coupon code because it's early. The welcome call for it is next week. So this coupon is going to expire next week. So use the coupon code GT20 at checkout for 20% off, because we want as many of you as possible to get in this and be able to learn this information and spread it to other people, spread it to friends, family, spread it all over the internet. If we are going to have a chance at real peace, I think people need to be educated on what's actually happening. And I know you guys know that because you're here with us.
That's true.
So geopoliticsandconflict.com, how the U.S. government works or doesn't, and check it out. Coupon code GT20.
All right. Let's dive into our topics, because it's very, very, very crucial what's going on. What's been taking place for the last 48 hours.
Absolutely.
In Niger. Let me share a picture here with our viewers so they can see. I always like to show pictures because they can always. So here is a picture here. This is the foreign minister of France. Her name is Catherine Colonna. So basically what she's saying is, now that France cannot, and this France cannot no longer carry out its mission.
Yep.
That's usually a subtle way of saying we are screwed.
Yep.
I'll say it straightforward. But in a diplomatic language, they have to soften the blow. Why is this? Why is this?
Would you like to watch a video of
Sure. Let's do the video first, then I'll do a little short analysis on it. So
it's one of the coolest things to actually watch this kind of thing happen via social media, because we didn't used to have that, right? So in history, we didn't get to watch these things unfold. But here it is. Do you see it, David?
Oh, hold
Niger.
I need to remove. Oh, you removed that one. Good.
Oh, yeah. Colonel Ibro, accompanied by other military men, led the anti-France protests earlier today in Niger. And that was on the 2nd. So let's look at all those people. Look at that.
Wow.
Okay, there's one more actually that I would like to show, and this one is let me share this tab instead. So this one is interesting because this is the police losing control at the French military base. Look at that.
Wow.
Oh, let me make it bigger for you guys. See if I can do that. That's really something.
Yeah. So basically, the way you guys gonna have to look at this is not only Niger is saying to France, "You done here." Basically, officially, you done here. And usually, when you ask a country to withdraw its forces, it's the same thing. It's funny how history goes in. This goes in parallel with what we experienced in Iraq, when Iraq government asked our government to leave. We kind of refused first. So, but in the case of Niger, it's because Africa, as I said last time, is reflecting that change on the global geopolitical landscape. And this is where you're going to see that campaign. So basically, Niger is saying to France, "You done here? You done exploiting our country? You done exploiting the resources?" And speaking of the resources, there is now a hidden fight between France and Niger regarding the price of uranium. Niger increased the price to 200 euros a kilo. And rightly, it's their own. France was getting it for 80 cents. Big difference.
Well, and so this whole thing, it's actually very interesting that you're bringing this up, because this really is. So Niger is the world's 7th largest uranium producer, which is big, and one of the highest grade ores in all of Africa. And its only major mine currently in production is operated by a French government-owned entity. So, and France has 56 nuclear reactors, and Niger accounts for 22% of France's supply of uranium last year alone. So we're really looking at an economic fight. So some of the interesting things that have been said about this is that let's see if I can find this quote. Basically, what it talks about is that the French people are tired of having their resources being taken over.
You mean Niger people?
Yes, I'm sorry. I don't know what I just said.
You said French.
Oh, I did not mean that. Sorry, guys. Strike that.
Niger.
I meant the Nigerian people are very tired of having their resources taken away from them. And they're saying it plain out. And it's hard to say, oh, no, well, France should keep getting the same deal that it's been getting. I don't think anyone across the world would say that that's okay.
Well, actually, because the whole thing, it's Niger became now the hallmark of what needs to be done in Africa. We're talking about across the continent, because other countries are also realizing why they are not benefiting from their resources.
Absolutely.
Except that Niger came forceful to the forefront by challenging now France, pushing it out and say, we're done. And as a matter of fact, because here is why I said Niger is representing that really with that pivot of the global balance of power, is because you're going to have to think in terms of China's presence in Africa,
Mhm.
Russia's presence in Africa, mainly in China. But China, why? Because of economics aspect. As a matter of fact, China volunteered, listen carefully, guys, China volunteered now to mediate between France and Niger.
Interesting.
We all know what happened between Saudi Arabia
Right.
and Iran.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, yesterday, I follow up on this because not only I wrote a books about both countries, but that's part of my academic focus in the Middle East. Yesterday, the Iranian ambassador to Saudi Arabia arrived to Saudi Arabia yesterday.
Wow.
Officially.
Wow.
Whoever thought. This sign.
Whoever thought.
Yes,
wow.
That's because we were the one ensuring that division and those tensions between Saudi Arabia and Iran, given that Sunni versus Shiites, we used, China was able to broker a deal for that. Now China is saying, I'll be happy to mediate. To China, that's a big deal. What do I mean by this? That's how you grow your global influence. You don't grow your global influence through military. You can do it in a subtle way, diplomatically. Of course, like the video I released this morning about on the other channel, you guys might want to check it out, about China's strategy in Africa. It's the big picture. Of course, two main things: securing access to natural resources,
hugely,
and influencing the global landscape. This Niger case exemplified in the terms of international relations. This is the perfect scenario. France is realizing it's over, because here is just check this picture. I'm gonna, guys, share this with you. Tell me what's wrong with this picture, if anybody can pay attention. Tell me what is wrong with that picture.
Is it the flags in the back?
Okay, what's wrong with them?
Well, they're French and EU flags.
Why the EU?
That's a great question.
That's my point.
That's a great question.
So it shows you right there. This is about the idea of we, the EU. When I say EU, I'm not referring to all countries. You look at, for example, Hungary. Hungary doesn't get involved in this. As a matter of fact, Hungary pushed back against the EU to send more money to Ukraine. It's the idea of how countries like France and Germany, mainly France in this case, by showing, remember when we talked about the EU sending a humanitarian military mission?
Right. It was civilian military. Yeah.
So this is the reflection of it. And this is why Niger is saying, we've had it. You are out, your military out. But also we have to understand, because they were agreements between France and Niger. As a matter of fact, I did dig in some places and I found out when they signed those agreements between the two countries. Let me just open this here to check it out, because I read them in foreign language, so I can't post the foreign language. People not gonna.
I think that's one of the things people maybe don't know about us. How many languages do you speak?
A few.
I've got 3 under my belt.
Yeah.
And you've got maybe 4.
Well, with the 6
5,
at home, 6 at home with the whole family and all that stuff. But I don't do all 6. I do so. So here's the thing. You look at that. The reason why is this important? To put it within the context of the agreements that Niger signed with France since 1977 are coming to an end. So let me just share with you quickly here. One of them has to do with an agreement that was signed on February 19th, 1977. It will be expired within 60 days. Another one was signed on May 25th, 2013, will be expired in 2 months. Another one was signed in July 2013, will expire in 5 months. And another one was signed in 2015. It will expire. Actually, it should expire this month on September 3rd.
Wow. So that was yesterday.
Yeah. Then another one was signed on April 2020, will expire in 2 months. So my whole point for highlighting this is to show you how much France was sinking its claws into Niger because of resources.
Because of resources. You're absolutely right.
So now the picture is changing completely. I believe, as an analyst, for Niger, it's going to be the turning point into the global balance of power.
I think you're absolutely right.
That's the way I see it playing out.
It's interesting because Niger is not the first to kick France out. Mali and Burkina Faso also kicked France out.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah. And in the case of Niger, they're not only doing this, you know what else they're doing?
Right.
They're preparing for military action.
Right.
But here is why. And we did talk about ECOWAS, right?
Yeah, we did. We did.
And I said it's nothing but hypes. You know why? Because yesterday, ECOWAS asked for help. And guess from whom? The EU.
Yep.
Tells you right there. And I remember using the term, it's on record, on whose behalf ECOWAS.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is where you guys need to always understand information in the books and articles, and it's not enough. Like when they asked Einstein about, when somebody asked him about, well, how about the time travel and all that stuff? He said, I don't know this kind of information. It's in the book.
Yeah.
What you need to understand is how to think.
Exactly.
How to think.
My gosh, that's so important.
And this is what's important about understanding these dynamics, because those is what pushed the trajectory of global order to go one way or another.
Yeah.
And we already seeing the shift.
Yeah.
Shift is already happening. And it's going to be multipolar. There are those who argue it's going to be bipolar. Well, because back then it used to be the Soviet Union and the United States.
Right.
There are those who are saying, no, it's going to be bipolar between China and the US.
Yeah.
No, it won't. It will be multipolar. And I remember about 3 or 4 months ago, I said one time that, mark my word on it, that the new multipolar system, it will be guided through economic blocks, not ideology.
Yeah.
This is what I'm seeing happening. And this is why China is volunteering to mediate.
Right.
Because that would be a big blow to the West.
Absolutely.
Big blow.
And interestingly enough, we're looking at who they're kicking out, but who they're asking in. So Niger brought Wagner in, brought Russia in, and brought China in and allowed them to stay while kicking out France.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that the US hasn't really weighed in on this very much. So more or less, some rumblings here, there are, and just it's not a good idea. We denounce it and whatever, but there's not really a whole lot going on there. Like pretty much France is out on its own. The EU's not really stepping in. Nobody's really stepping in on this situation.
Yeah.
It's really just France that's getting kicked out here. But it is interesting that Niger brought Wagner in and brought China in and is kicking the West out.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. I have sympathy for them, because to have their resources being taken and have their population
for Niger.
for Niger, for the people whose resources
what you meant.
have been.
I just want to make sure our viewers,
because there's always somebody who has to get in the comments and say, well, that's not right. That's not. No, what I mean is I have sympathy for the people of Niger, because how can you see the way that those people were living and see how rich in natural resources they were? And, there's all these humanitarian things and let's see, can we use the word anti-extremism, all of these things. Well, how come it hasn't worked? For the decades that they've been trying to help the people, why hasn't that worked?
Well, you look at it just for what, let's just state the facts the way they are. If you are to take, for example, the presence of the European countries like France, the Germans were there before, the Dutch, the Belgians, whatever. You take all that. You take the presence of China in comparison to that, and you see the accomplishment. You go just back 50 years and look at the history. What has been achieved in the last 20 years with the presence of China in Africa versus the last 50 years with the presence of the European or the colonial powers, or whatever term you want to use. And this is where that difference is. Africa, this is why I say it's a turning point. And Africans, like you said, especially in Niger, reached that point where enough is enough.
And I don't blame them. I don't blame them. And I think that it's, I think that the resources of any population belongs to that population. But, it's interesting because we have that same problem here. Do you know who owns the majority of the water in the United States?
No.
Nestle.
Wow.
Nestle, a corporation, owns the majority of the water here in the United States. For those of you guys who don't know that, that's part of what the government course is here to talk about. If you guys see it on your screen, we have launched a government course that David is teaching live, and it's because of things like that.
Yeah, the knowledge.
Because it's not just the people of Niger whose resources are being stolen out from under them.
No.
Here in the United States, our resources are being stolen out from under us too.
No. So the one thing I need to go back to, you mentioned about the US and when it comes down to this conflict here.
Yeah.
The reason why the push was against France more so than the US, because it begs the question, because there is more than what meet the eye.
Of course there is.
Just make no mistake about it.
Yeah.
And that begs the question. Could be that we have to orchestrate something in Gabon, what just happened? And if so, why?
Right.
Well, there's a quick answer to that. The reason being because Ali Bongo was Obama's point man in Africa vis-a-vis the Libyan conflict. You all know what happened in Libya.
Well, actually, say a little bit about that for the people who don't know.
Well, it's because, first of all, the Libyan leader back then was calling for a unified currency to bypass the petrodollar.
Yeah.
Use gold.
So he had to be ousted.
Well, the way that Obama did that, and by the way, this was through research, an article from the Global Research, which I'll be happy to share the link with you guys. And I read that particular magazine. It's very informative, very insightful. So it was an article written by Peter Koenig, very, very insightful. And the idea was that, hey, don't jump quick to conclusions. This is why you're not hearing much pushback against the US, because we had two main bases in Niger.
Absolutely.
Still have the drone base.
Still have the drone base.
But the idea of, we also think about it in terms of, why don't we throw the French under the bus?
Yeah.
Same way we did in Australia.
Absolutely.
Same thing.
And it's very interesting because we really aren't hearing anything about it.
No, you won't.
The reason that the French ambassador Sylvain Ite is getting thrown out is because he refused to meet with the new government, right? They're not throwing him out for no reason. They're throwing him out because France's position has been a really hard position on, we are trying to maintain control in the situation. You are not hearing the same out of the United States. And I wonder why that is.
Well, that is why there was that question, which is legitimate in my opinion, as to really all of a sudden the Gabon coup happened. Could be a distraction, could be this, could be that. This is why it's nice to understand more than just read something. And to me, that's where I see the big picture. The whole reason for all this, it has to do with the growing influence of China in Africa. And that comes with access to resources. Those resources that tends to influence the trajectory of what lies ahead.
Absolutely.
We're talking about lithium. If you think about lithium, what do you use lithium for?
Phone batteries, car batteries.
A
lot of our world is powered by lithium.
You think about uranium, you think about gold, you think about cobalt. And Africa happens to be rich in all this.
Oil and gas too.
Well, as a matter of fact, even for Gabon, plays a role into the OPEC.
Absolutely.
OPEC and went back. So my point in all this, don't just jump to conclusion. Just try to think what's behind. This is why you are not hearing much about the US. US has never been criticized in this.
Which is very interesting.
And even the US didn't use the term coup in Niger at some point.
Right.
That tells you right there. We wanted to push the French and the bus.
Under the bus.
Because remember, France was the one that called for Europe to reduce its reliance on the dollar. And all this has to be put under the geopolitical lenses by looking exactly at the summit that just concluded in Johannesburg in South Africa regarding the BRICS and how it used to be that term of well, nothing's going to challenge G7, nothing's going to challenge the dollar,
not
anymore. And this is what you see in the reflection of it. That's how geopolitics works.
Absolutely.
To break it down in a simple approach, what you are witnessing or hearing about or reading about regarding Niger, it's a reflection of that change of the geopolitical landscape.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
is not to our favor.
No, it's not. And it's interesting here because, Victoria Nuland went to Niger, and she was basically kicked out. She's basically kicked out and shut down.
Yeah.
But we haven't really heard much else since then. We also, because, we do have a drone base here. The United States has a drone base in Niger. And it's interesting that we're not hearing anything. As the last that I heard, those personnel are completely safe. Why is that? Why is it that they're marching on the French military base and not the American military base?
Exactly.
So there are clearly some things going on behind the scenes that I think are very interesting. And I wonder if Washington basically knows that they're not going to win this. And so they're more or less kind of playing.
Let's sacrifice the French.
Right. Let's sacrifice the French and let's keep this kind of status quo going so that we don't lose everything.
Yeah.
Because let's say they do increase the price of uranium. Let's say they do increase the price of natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that China takes over the majority of the natural resources in Africa. And pays, probably a much fairer wage.
Well, I'll push back. I'll push back against the word take over.
Okay.
I'll push back against that word. How will they take over? For that?
Well,
they're not going to take over because they're going to enter into.
Right.
This is very different. They're going to enter into an agreement.
Absolutely.
With
right.
So I won't categorize it as taking over. I will categorize it as entering into an agreement that is beneficial to both parties.
Yeah.
Which something France wasn't doing.
I agree.
That's where I see the difference.
I agree.
So
and I do agree. And I do see very much that China is doing a much fairer situation because basically what France was doing was
benefiting France
was honestly almost unconscionable or completely unconscionable.
That's true.
If you take the resources out of a country and you do not pay it fairly or even close to fairly, I think that's immoral. I actually think that makes you a bad guy. If you take the resources of a country and you do not give anything appropriate back, I think that makes you a bad guy. That's my personal opinion.
Colonialism, the mindset. And it doesn't matter what country.
It does not matter what
that's
country.
True. Absolutely. I agree with you.
I think most of the water in the United States not belonging to us, the people, I actually think that makes them the bad guy too. So
that is true. I see your point.
What I'm saying though is that as you take over, one thing China has done very well is has gone out economically into the world and created situations that are far better than the ones that these countries had before. So I absolutely see that. But I've said this before, and sometimes I get pushback, sometimes I don't. That is that there are two ways to take over the world. One is through war, right? Through war, through aggression, through power, through the mechanisms, unfortunately, that the United States has primarily used. The other is economic. If you control and companies control a large part of the world. As much as we would like to say, oh, the governments are in charge. Oh, the governments are in charge. They are not. Because even central banks, for the most part, are businesses. Those are companies that are choosing whether to fund this or that, or call in that debt or what interest rate. The Fed is not a government organization. We don't talk about that much here, but it's not. So we cannot take away the influence of corporations from the world that we live in. Yeah. And so if China is now the country that is primarily in charge of those resources, I don't know what they're going to do with that. And no, I don't think anybody knows what they're going to do with that. But that is a way to gain influence over countries. Yeah. Because that's in some ways what the IMF does. They go and they say, we're here to bring you a whole lot of money. And the people in charge they're like, well, we like money. We like this. Yeah. So they're going to go for it. So what I don't know is what's going to happen as a result of that.
Well, I intend to ask this question for Dr. Hammond. I'm going to have an interview with him on Friday on the other channel. So, Dr. Hammond and I will talk offline and all that. So, and I'm intend to ask him this particular question to tie it to the history of China.
Yeah.
because when you look at the whole history, you have to go back and see really, because history does reflect on exactly how a country behaves.
Absolutely it does. However, the thing with China is that it is sort of the rising power that is replacing US in terms of global economy. So it is a rising economy as the United States economy is falling, and so its behavior as a global player, as just a regular global player, might very well be different from its behavior as a hegemon.
I would say I wouldn't use the term different. I will use the term irrational. So irrational policies.
Okay, tell me
because
more.
That's what the US is embarking on.
Oh, absolutely.
And the way you look at it in two locations, basically, Africa and South China Sea.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure you heard what just happened with New Zealand.
Well, and Taiwan.
Taiwan has always been the case, but New Zealand.
What just happened with
New Zealand's going to be now the jaws of AUKUS will be open to swallow New Zealand. And if you know anything about New Zealand, then New Zealand has always took a stand on nuclear-free zones.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I would like to go on my honeymoon to New Zealand. So New Zealand, stay cool.
Yeah. Well, they have
stay cool, New Zealand.
Have elections coming up in October. So I'm an outsider. I'm not. I can't dictate. I would never dictate. But if I had, if I am asked, it will be nice to see Mahuta, the current foreign minister, become the prime minister.
What do you think he would do?
Well, Mahuta. She's a female.
Oh, sorry.
She's indigenous. One of the indigenous.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mahuta. That's wonderful. Yeah.
And she's the one who looked at Tony Blinken in his eyes and said, don't ever think about it as far as AUKUS. But her boss, Prime Minister Chris Hipkins, a white dude, following the Anglo, he kind of, he's her boss.
Yeah.
There's the hierarchy. This is why I think New Zealanders, they're going to now have to make a really crucial decision as to they don't want that party anymore. Take him out. And I wish Mahuta will run for the PM. She will get it. Otherwise, I can see her resigning and leaving. She's an indigenous being. Those people have a lot of ties to the land.
Yep.
They stood their ground regarding the nuclear. All of a sudden, and that in itself is a reflection of our policy being pushed in the South China Sea, in Australia, in New Zealand. We all see what's going on with Australia. You're seeing the same, and now it's going to be reflected also in Africa.
Yeah. Well, and it's actually very interesting. We have been taught that the power lies with the government, the power lies with the corporations, but the power really lies with the people. And I remember reading a Deepak Chopra quote when the election was happening between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton here in the United States. And he said, whoever wins is the president we deserve. And, a lot of people pushed back on him for that, but it's the truth, because if we are the ones who stand up for what we actually want, that's what happens. And it's interesting to watch, some of these coups are being taken out or executed, coups, revolutions, whatever you'd like to call them. They're being done by people who have been playing the long game.
That's true.
These seem to be people who have been cooking this for a long time, who have seen the problems of their people for a long time.
All right, let me close this out so we can move on to the next topic. So the bottom line, guys, what you need to understand in all this is that by kicking French soldiers out of their base, which is the base is in Namambi, if I'm not mistaken, is near the capital Niamey. They had about 1,500 soldiers there. Basically, by asking them out is the official sort of withdrawal of France. France will have no say anymore. And with the expiration of the agreements they done, so you'll see the era of French colonialism or French colonialism in Niger is coming to an end.
Well, and
what is our next topic?
All right. So our next topic, which would you rather do? Would you rather do Europe's economy or would you rather do
G20?
All right.
G20 is important.
Okay.
So G20 is important.
Very important. So our next topic is the fact that Chinese President Xi is not going to the G20 summit in India.
Yeah, which is going to be soon. Yeah.
Which is the first summit that he has not attended.
Yeah.
And it is immediately following the BRICS summit that just happened, where China basically was the big boss power player in that summit.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting about all this is that the president, our esteemed, his
Joe Biden, President Joe Biden,
stupid president. That's what I would call him. So I have nothing against the man, but you gotta call what it is. What it is. What he's saying is that, and let me quote here. He said, "I am disappointed, but I am going to go to see him," meaning in reference to President Xi. Yeah. Well, here is the way I see it. And again, putting my geopolitical analyst hat. China thinking in terms of optics. That's why. Absolutely. Because in international relations, context matters.
Yep.
The fact that China doesn't show up to a G20, first of all, that diminishes the substance of the summit.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
The largest economy doesn't show up.
Exactly. Second thing is the question that we need to ask is will China show up if the meeting was held somewhere else but India?
My personal opinion is that they would have.
Yeah.
So China and India, if you're looking at the BRICS countries, you bring this up all the time, David. China and India are the ones out of all of the BRICS countries, including the 6 new ones that they're trying to bring in, that are not getting along very well. And you see India playing both sides.
But more of those countries, the 6 that's coming up, I think Saudi Arabia and Arab Emirates, Egypt, Eritrea, Iran, and Argentina. The 6 of them that's going to be next year. They all have a better economic relations with China than they do with India. So the question, all this geopolitically is, President Xi, or China in general term, did not want to give a platform to the American president who's saying one thing and doing another. That's one. Second, that also a message to India, because India is playing both sides, like you said. And I've always argued till India gets its act together. As a matter of fact, I just read this morning a UN report by Human Rights. They're really scathing a report about how silent the Indian government about what took place in Manipur. The atrocities. We're talking about sexual violence. We're talking about ethnic, sort of targeting the Christians, the Muslims, and the government is staying quiet. And again, I don't shy away from saying this. I know some have send me some very nasty comments.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh, I don't care. They can send them if they have something of value to say. But I won't shy away from addressing that, because Modi, give him the proper respect. Prime Minister Modi is an ideologue. Is not therefore serving the welfare of the Indian citizens in general term. I mean, we all know throughout history, you've been in India, so we all know that India has always been inclusive. It's an old history, an old civilization.
Very old.
You can't ignore them. Nobody's ignoring them.
A lot of
but
very
at the
different
same time, what we're seeing right now is the policies that they are embarking on. Now, there is another thing that is very important about G20. Russia already mentioned that they will not, listen carefully, they will not support any final communique.
That's
another big blow.
That is
because here is the thing. Any forum like that, when the US is in, they'll tend to push the narrative about all of those attendees are against Russia and so forth. Russia made it clear ahead of time that if the communique does not address our concerns as well, we're not going to support it. What is the big deal about that? If a communique is not embraced by all attendees, it tends to be flawed. And if it tends to be flawed, that gives you how the failure of the summit itself.
The summit itself, absolutely.
This is where geopolitics comes in. And India, given the play or the tactics it's playing, I understand, and I perfectly aware of every country has to look after its own interests.
Absolutely.
But the way India is going about it, I've even been reading articles now about there is a That's why always, guys, be careful about what you read.
Mm-hmm.
The articles that I'm coming across has nothing to do with Indonesia, because they're doing the same for Indonesia.
Yeah.
Did you know that our Pentagon lied about Indonesia in a statement saying that Indonesia condemned the Ukraine conflict? And Indonesia never said that.
The Pentagon lied?
The Pentagon. Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, no way.
No way,
No
right?
way. The Pentagon lied?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, I can't even believe it.
Yeah.
That's sarcasm, guys. I can absolutely believe that the Pentagon lied.
Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. And the idea of them for doing that, it was like, wait a minute, how this can be? I'm going to share a link, not a link, but rather share a screen with you guys,
okay,
to see it with your own eyes. Because this way, we have to have a record for things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Check this out. You guys see that?
Yes. There it goes.
Right
there it goes.
Indonesia shames the Pentagon. U.S. Pentagon released a fake joint statement that condemned Russia and vilified China. Immediately, Indonesia debunked American disinformation by saying, and I quote here, "There is no joint statement and no press conference. Our relationship with China is very good. We respect each other. We already have mutual understanding. We are close friends with China. We seek friendship with Russia." This is the defense minister, Prabowo Subianto, who's running for president, by the way.
Whoa.
So that's, again, this is my point, guys. Be careful about here. So any articles you read about Indonesia, be careful. It's the same arguments that is made now about the area of Ladakh and where the border between China and India.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a flow of articles highlighting how China wants to redraw the map in an entire area.
Yeah.
And you know what the purpose of that is? To foment tensions.
Yeah.
And usually, if you foment tensions when it comes down to international affairs, that means you don't have any strategy.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by using the term irrational policies.
Yeah.
And all this stems from the BRICS coming up. You look at a 40 country who wants to join.
Yeah.
And the demise of the EU, G7.
Yeah.
And now G20 without having China attending.
Yeah.
That's the big picture.
The G7 without having China. That's
G20.
Or G20. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, G20
You're
without
right.
having China attending.
Oh, it's kind of like it's no brainer.
Right.
How can you not take note of one of the largest growing economy not even attending, and you still call that a summit? A successful summit?
Right.
No, it won't.
It won't. And it's very interesting because over the years she has gone.
Yeah.
He's gone because it's provided him a platform. It's provided China a platform that it's needed.
That is correct. That is correct.
Now,
it's part of growing.
Right.
We did the same after World War II.
But right now, he doesn't seem to need it anymore. At least he thinks he doesn't seem to need it anymore.
Yeah.
And him not going is bigger as a statement than anything he could have said while he was there.
That's true. And that's true. And for the US president to say, well, I am, what was the word that he used? Let me use his own term.
I think disappointed or something.
I have it right here. Yeah, disappointed. You're right. For him to use, I am sure the Chinese would just shrug their shoulders. You know, what is Uncle Joe talking about? Does he remember? So it's kind of, it's reality. Why? Because to Chinese, they're looking at a hypocrisy. Right. We're saying one thing and doing another.
Oh, hugely.
We just had our Commerce Secretary going to China, turning around and expanding the chip ban.
Yeah. No, and that's been actually the wildest thing.
Yeah.
Is you're absolutely right. On one side, here are all these people that we're sending over, right? Here are all these diplomats that we're sending over. And then the other side of the house is Washington keeps saying no chips, no technology, no. And so it really is both sides of the mouth.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Chinese are smart. They know what's happening.
They know.
And so on the global stage, they just said, nah, we're out. We're done with this. Yeah. And they have the power to back it up. Whether the US wants that or not, they seem to have the power to back that up.
I just had a conversation with Rick Turn. You remember Rick, right?
Yeah.
He's a good friend, and we addressed these aspects of it, of how China, because within the context of BRICS, and CBDC and the yuan and the digital currency and so forth, and I agree with him. The death of the US dollar ain't gonna happen tomorrow.
No,
because you think about
not.
it took Europe, the euro, 9 years for it to be, it takes time to, and that's the whole argument for this, for what China is seeing, how the changes on the geopolitical landscape will have to be managed accordingly. This is why I said the new multipolar order will be managed through economic blocks.
Absolutely.
China sees the economic ventures as the way to cement the growing influence on the global stage as the US is declining. Because we all know the reality in the US, how it is. And this leads us to the next topic.
Okay, let's talk really quickly about the government course before we dive into the next topic. So guys, the government course is launched. We have been talking about it for months, and it is finally here. David is teaching it live. The website to check it out.
I'm putting it out right now.
And it's also on the screen right now, geopoliticsandconflict.com/US.
Perfect.
There's a 20% off coupon code, and that is GT20. If you go and put that in, you'll get 20% off the price of it. And it's because the reality is that the United States government doesn't work the way that you think it does.
Yeah.
It doesn't work the way that most of us think it does. I would say almost everyone around the world gets it wrong. And so David is going to be teaching this course live, and the welcome kickoff Q&A call is next Tuesday, the 12th. So sign up for it now because the coupon code is going to go away by the 12th. So that's next Tuesday.
Yeah. And we're also thinking about another course down the road.
Absolutely.
I have something in mind that really will be very interesting. All this ties to what's going on the global stage.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say it yet.
Well, for right now, we have the government course, how the US government works or doesn't. And the reality is that this is information you got to know.
All right. Let's go on to our next topic.
Okay, so the next and final topic for today is Europe is kind of economically playing catch up. They are in a bad spot for a lot of reasons. They have shot themselves in the foot with economic policy so badly. And I'm going to say this because this is something that bothers me enormously. During the pandemic, the governments, the Western governments specifically, but not just the Western governments.
Yeah.
Okay. China also had a huge lockdown. I mean, it was.
They did. They did lockdown.
And,
that's
and
correct.
So right now their economy is stagnant. They're economically.
Yeah.
Those policies that we forgot because it was a couple years ago. Oh my God. Those policies destroyed the Western economies from what the economists that I have followed for years, they said this was going to happen. And here we are, and it's happened. And I want the world to remember that those policies are causing what we have now, according to the top economists.
And actually, tomorrow we're going to be diving deeper on Rumble on this topic. Yeah, I remember. We'll talk openly tomorrow. Make sure you guys join us tomorrow for Rumble.
There.
Yeah, see the link below, because we're gonna be digging deeper into really the link between this mandate now that we are starting to see here in the US, and how that can sort of degrade the economy by design. This by design.
Because the US economy and Europe's economy cannot take another one of these. We just can't. I mean, it'll absolutely destroy the Western world to have that happen again.
And I have some info I won't disclose here. I'll disclose it tomorrow.
So Rumble, there's the link is in the is on the screen if you guys want to check it out.
Yeah. So I hope you can join us tomorrow. So now let's talk about this G20 summit. I'm sorry, G20 summit.
Europe's
economy. My mind is really zooming at that, because I like to. The way I've always done it is the idea of always thinking ahead as to what lies ahead. So European Union.
Yes.
Why the economy of Europe is sinking big time across the board. You look at certain countries in Eastern Europe, mainly, if I am to, based on what I looked at in Hungary, to a degree, Romania to a degree, Bulgaria, but the Bulgaria, Romania, the small economies, they don't matter. When you look at the main one, France, Germany, UK, Spain, Portugal to a degree, but those countries, their economy is going down. So the idea that now the European Union thinking about the term that they use is called I have a term for it.
Okay.
Believe it or not. It's used within the political circles is geoeconomics.
Yeah.
Geoeconomics. So what does it mean basically in a simple term? You think in the geopolitical landscape to the economic outcome.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line to it.
Absolutely.
So, and for this, you can look at it from different angles. Well, I can only give you one example to make a point.
Yeah.
Niger.
Oh,
Africa.
Absolutely.
It makes simple.
Would any of this be happening in Niger if they didn't have uranium, if they didn't have natural resources? Yeah. No, it wouldn't be.
No, and this is why the European Union now is considered sort of arguing that nothing is wrong with the EU economy is still fine. No, it is not.
Well, I remember here, inflation was transitory for a long time.
Yeah.
How long is transitory? Oh, it's still going on. Oh, really?
So, and this is, again, you have to think about it in terms of when you take into consideration the multilateral institutions within the EU that advocate for certain international economic relations and so forth. To them, how things are going south so fast that they can control.
Yeah, absolutely.
I give you the example of the UK. I've talked to some people. The UK is on the verge of bankruptcy. They won't ever come forward and admit that because they are still going up with high interest.
Yeah.
You know, average Brit, it's having a hard time. Keeping up.
Absolutely.
And not just in Brits, across Europe.
Yeah.
But all this, it comes during a time when you compare it to what just took place with BRICS. Because you can dissociate or put this aside and say, oh, this is an isolated event by itself. Europe is because it's managing its economy certain ways, or no. The bottom line to it is the failed policies that the EU has embarked on following the US lead. That is the bottom line. What we have contributed to is two main events. One of them has to do with the blow up of the pipeline. The Nord Stream 2. And the second one is ensuring that the financial trap for Europe by keep sending their resources
to Ukraine. Absolute insanity.
Straightforward. There is no ifs and buts, because this is where the media put that spin on and add some language that an average Joe, average Jane, it's like, what the heck that word means, instead of using big words, instead of simplifying, breaking it down.
It's amazing to me because I'd actually like to see a chart, a transparent and accurate chart, which is never going to happen, of what the money is being used for in Ukraine. You know what I'm saying? A chart of actually where that money is going in Ukraine, because the money that's flowing into Ukraine is out of Europe. It's out of the US.
I read something yesterday and I can't confirm it. That's why I never wanted to say it 100%, because I need to check on those information. And that's usually sometimes I get them through my Twitter feed. So, and I have a lot of followers on Twitter. By the way, guys, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at the Oualaalou. You can follow me there.
I've got a banner for that. There it is.
Yeah, there's one there. So
there you go. So, follow David on Twitter. If you want the handle, it's Oualaalou.
So what happened is I saw that the numbers of the money sent to Ukraine reached $400 billion. I can't confirm it. I repeat this for the record. I can't confirm that one until I check. But at the same time, I'm not surprised. Because it's not just from the US.
Right.
It's coming from
all over. It's coming from Europe also.
Mainly, Europe and the US. I don't see African donor in there or China. No, they're not. Because they know.
Yeah.
And the question, like you said, Where's that money's gone?
Where has it gone? And then you start to see on TikTok, and then you start to see, on social media that the kids of these high-ranking officials are ending up with $20 million whatever it is, right? Living in France, these exuberant mansions, and you say, well, is that where it's going? And if not, where did they get that money?
That's true.
If their country is this kind of bombed out mess, where are they getting that money?
I forget, by the way, the third element to what I said earlier about the money to Ukraine and the blow up of the Nord Stream 2. There is a third element.
Okay.
The third element is the U.S. trade war with China. That one was aimed at Europe also, because we never wanted to. As a matter of fact, there is now rumors, and I use the term rumors here, that Germany wanted to pivot to China.
That's interesting. I believe it.
I just, for me, I have to confirm things before I conclusively, my credibility in line here. I can't. But so far, that's what it is. But I can see why. I can see why. Because we wanted to have the trade war with China, not about the US market, not about it, but also to prevent Europe. The same thing we did with Europe, not to get closer to Russia regarding energy. So, and this is why Europe economy now, it's soon, before you know it, BRICS will overtake G7.
Yeah. Well, and
my word on it.
That's in some ways, in a really big way, they already have. In terms of purchasing power. They have. And the United States is not thrilled about that, and understandably so, right? That is the end of an economic monopoly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you don't hear about that very much here, right? You don't hear about the fact that the BRICS countries have now surpassed us in purchasing power. You don't hear about that.
No, you won't hear much.
All you hear about is, oh, well, we're still on top. We're still the best. The dollar is still strong, which is true. The dollar is still strong. However, we're looking at what is going to happen over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years, over the next 20 years. And how does the world look? And it's you're looking at some very critical negative things that have happened in terms of Europe getting natural resources. We talk about this with the Niger coup, revolution, whatever you'd like to call it. We talk about the fact that there was a pipeline that was supposed to go through there. That isn't going to happen anymore. And where was that pipeline headed? It was headed to Europe.
So this is where that global economic order that was set really after Bretton Woods is coming to an end. Basically, Bretton Woods system era is coming to an end. So if I am to think, just, I don't like to use the term guess. In geopolitics, it's hard. And you won't go about guessing as much as you go about analyzing for possible outcome. So if I am to say what will be the possible outcome within a decade, is that the change to the value of the US dollar on the global stage. Well,
I mean, it's actively being.
It is actively, but it will take,
believe
it or not, you're looking at 5 to 10 years before.
Absolutely.
I followed the euro. Euro. I used to travel to Europe back then, and a family in Europe and all that stuff. So you convert money to Dutch to German mark, Dutch mark. You'll convert to a French franc. You convert to the pound sterling in England and so forth. All of a sudden, with the euro, well, you got one come by, but it took them 9 years. And it's, of course, because we pushed behind the scenes for that, because we wanted to weaken the financial structure of Europe. The way I see it moving forward, with the BRICS going up, within the decade, you were going to see some fundamental changes to the economic global order, that it's not going to be in favor of the West, because the wealth has already shifted from the West to the East, and with the East being the hub of the global economic engine. This is what the reflection of what those 40 countries that are wanting to join BRICS mean. not all of them is going to contribute, of course, but BRICS is going to be smart enough to assess and evaluate
who is and who isn't going to contribute.
And I could see why they picked on the 6 right away, because 3 of them are considered the major oil producers.
You know what I think is interesting with all this call for green energy, green whatever.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest countries that are being picked are not the ones that are doing the green the best. They're the oil producing countries.
Yeah.
So I just want people to pay attention to that the big power players are picking oil producing countries.
Yeah. Which will make perfect sense internally and for the dynamics of not only the bilateral trade, but also global trade. Without bypassing the whole Western system.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. So, well, guys, we hope you find this informative. By the way, make sure to join us tomorrow for Rumble. Yeah, we're gonna be detailing. There is a link down in the bottom there, and we will be detailing more about really what's going on. I have some information from Davos. I know, but they need to know.
Yeah,
our viewers need to know. So
absolutely.
And also remember to check out that government course. And I'm very excited. Next week we'll start officially on that.
Yep, very exciting, guys. Get in before next week. We'll be doing a live welcome call where you guys can bring some questions and all that. David is teaching this course live, and at the end of every single class, so there's 8 classes, and at the end of every single class there's a Q&A, so you guys can interact with David. And you know, I might pop on also, but with David directly. So I think that's a kind of a cool deal.
Perfect. Well, we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. As always, prepare yourself for a changing world order. Till next time. Bye-bye.